Hi, I'm Nick Haig. I'm an Anglican priest and the vicar of the parishes of Fernhurst, Linchmere and Camelsdale here in beautiful West Sussex. I'm going to start my reflection today, Sunday the 7th of June, which happens to be Trinity Sunday, with a story and a bit of a confession. You see, long ago when I was at theological college, in addition to the tried and tested team of tutors and lecturers, we used to have the odd visiting speaker. Some of them were very odd indeed, come to think of it. But we had one chap who came once. He was a priest, but I can't remember actually what he talked about. But he got onto the subject of the Trinity, a difficult subject. But he got excited about it. He was a scientist by training and talked about all the sort of things which revealed the Trinity in everything. Nature, for example. And how threes were found in all sorts of things. You know, the egg which has a shell and a yolk and a white, and a plant with roots and a stem and leaves and so on. And he said you even find this within science itself, in equations. He said there's Ohm's law in electricity, which is about the relationship between current and voltage and resistance. And there's Boyle's law when you come to gases, which is about the relationship between pressure and volume and temperature. And here's the confession, I couldn't help myself. I spoke up from the back, my usual haunt, and I said, of course there's Cole's law as well, which is about the relationship between chopped cabbage, carrot and mayonnaise. And for some reason he changed the subject after that. The Trinity has always puzzled people. It's a difficult concept. How can one God have three persons? Or how can three persons be one God? All sorts of symbols have been tried to explain this. Famously, St. Patrick showed the King of Ireland a clover with 3 leaves, but 1 leaf, 3 lobes. And there have been all sorts of symbols. Here are a few of them. The never-ending line, which nevertheless has 3 leaves or 3 lobes. There's also more complicated symbols to represent how God is not the Son but is God, and the Father and the Spirit is not the Father or the Son but is God. We got a picture of one of those in St. Peter's, Linchmere. And behind my left shoulder you should be able to see an icon, the famous icon by Andrei Rublev of the Trinity. But we say to ourselves, well, okay, but what difference does that make? How does that bear on everyday life? And anyway, the word Trinity isn't even in the Bible. So why are we getting hung up about it? The fact is that Jesus himself makes it clear that we need to understand God in 3 persons. He makes it clear that we have to have an understanding of God which we call the Trinity, which has 3 figures, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Jesus made it clear that there is the Father. He is sent by the Father. He is sent to reveal the Father to everybody, reveal what God is like. He makes it clear, as we remembered last week at Pentecost, that when he goes, he will leave us the Holy Spirit to be with us. And he makes it clear that he himself is God. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit come straight from the one we follow as Christians, Christ himself. Which brings us to our Gospel reading for today, which is the famous Trinity Sunday reading, the first time, and in fact the only time in the Gospels where you'll see Father, Son and Holy Spirit mentioned in the same sentence. It's Matthew chapter 28, verses 16 to 20, the so-called Great Commission, Jesus' final words. I'm reading from the English Standard Version. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always, to the end of the age." Those are the final words of Matthew's Gospel. The Gospel according to St. Matthew, the good news. And we tend to take people's final words quite seriously, don't we? And that passage is the mandate really for the church. To go into all nations. The Greek word is ethne, from which we get ethnic or ethnicity or anything like that. It means not just all countries, it means everybody, every people type throughout the whole world. The gospel, God himself, is for all those people. People's last words. There are some interesting ones out there. Humphrey Bogart, just before dying from cancer of the esophagus, a heavy smoker all his life, said, "I should never have switched from scotch to martinis." Charlie Chaplin said on his deathbed, after a priest told him, "May the Lord have mercy on your soul," said, "Why not? After all, it belongs to him." Karl Marx, the philosopher, said, "Last words are for fools who haven't said enough." The French grammarian Dominique Bourgoin, who died in 1702, said, "I am about to, or I am going to, die. Either expression is correct." Queen Elizabeth I, Queen of England, who died in 1603, said, "All my possessions for a moment of time." And General John Sedgwick, Union commander in the American Civil War, said, "They couldn't hit an elephant at this distance." So it's worth analysing Jesus' words in some detail. They're not particularly humorous, but they are profound. He said, "I am with you always to the end of the age." Now, I've talked about Jesus saying, "I am." His famous "I am" statements resonate throughout St. John's Gospel. "I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the great shepherd," and so on and so forth. Is this another "I am" statement? Because "I am" means God. "I am" is the word that God gives to Moses at the burning bush to prove that it is really God who's talking. And Jesus also says, when he's having an argument with some Pharisees, "Before Abraham was, I am," which made them really mad because it means he was claiming to be God, and in fact was God. But Jesus says here in Matthew, "I am with you always." I am with you. Is that another "I am" statement? Well, not obviously, but if you look at it in the Greek, it's a different story. When I was at theological college, my New Testament Greek tutor said that to speak Greek, you need to think Yoda from Star Wars. And the reason you do that is because he uses the same sentence structure as is used in Greek. Going down to the shops, we are. Using the force, I am. Making a video, I am. Stumbling over words sometimes, I do. And in the Greek, those 4 words in Matthew's Gospel, "I am with you," really read, "I with you am." I with you am. It's like an "I am" statement with you in the middle. Jesus, with his last words, includes us in the Trinity. That may seem like a profound statement, but it's real enough, you see, because Christian theology basically is that we become part of God. We are drawn into the Godhead as we put our faith in him. We become Christ's. He becomes part of us. It's a big step to take, isn't it, mentally? But we are with the Trinity. We're drawn into it. Perhaps the traditional symbol of just the Trinity, God far off, God separate from us, is wrong. We should be in there somewhere. Doesn't mean to say that we think of ourselves as God. There are far too many people in this world who think of themselves as God. I'm not going to say no more about that at this particular time. But it does mean to say that we are drawn in fully and completely into God. We don't see the fullness of that yet. But more importantly, it means that God gives dignity, acceptance, worth to every single human life. And that's the important point today. That because God identifies with us by sending Christ to be one of us, to identify completely with what it is to be human, he also takes us into himself so that we can become, in the fullness of time, part of the divine. And every human life, no matter what ethnicity, no matter what nation you're from or what nation you find yourselves in, every person, young, old, black, white, of any colour in between, is given worth by God. With you I am, says Jesus, and you are part of me, and I am part of you. It means that the respect we have for another can never be enough. We all carry the sacred within us. We all have God's mark on us, created in his image, made to glorify him, and given his dignity and worth. On this Trinity Sunday, we give thanks for God, whatever the Trinity means, making us to be part of this mystery. And mystery it is because we don't see all of it yet, but one day we will. And in the meantime, we look out for each other, we care for each other, we affirm the values that we find spoken of by Christ, and we commit ourselves to walk with him as he commits himself to walk with us. Amen.